Today we are going to talk about medulla oblongata, and I'm going to post this class today. So we have completed spinal cord, and next we go as we go up into the cranial cavity, we have to go through the brainstem. Now, what are the parts of the brainstem? Brainstem, as we come from below upwards, we have the medulla oblongata, the pons, and the midbrain. Now, in this slide, you can see the pons below, which is in the yellow and the green, the medulla oblongata below, which is in yellow and green, and pons is in blue. Now we are concentrating on medulla oblongata today. Okay, so I'm going to go through the objectives because your assignments will be targeted towards the objectives. So in medulla oblongata, you have to know about the external features, and then we have to also talk about the internal features and sections at 3 levels. So you have to see the cross sections. Now in neuroanatomy, cross sections are very important, so we have to learn the cross sections at 3 levels. Okay, and then a little bit in brief about the blood supply, and then the clinical anatomy. Now I'll go through the external features just to give you an idea, and then you have to read also from the book and practice the diagrams. Okay, now coming to brainstem, what is I have already given an introduction that it consists of medulla, pons, and midbrain, and it is a stalk-like structure, and it is, what does it do? It helps in passage of the ascending tracts and descending tracts. Already you have seen the tracts in the spinal cord, and it is also very important because it contains all the vital centers, so for cardiorespiratory control. Okay, so this you will definitely hear in physiology also. And remember that brainstem gives rise to the nuclei of the 10th cranial nerve, so we cannot forget the cranial nerves, because most of the cranial nerves, that is the last 10 cranial nerves, okay, they all arise from the brainstem. So now we'll go through the medulla oblongata, and then definitely pons and midbrain will be dealt in separate classes. Now coming to the medulla oblongata, we have to know about the external features. Now remember that external features in medulla oblongata is read in 2 portions, that is, you have a ventral aspect, you have a dorsal aspect. Now ventral aspect is what we see, that is the anterior aspect. It is also called the anterior aspect, and dorsal aspect is actually covered. The lower part is closed for the medulla oblongata. The upper part, it is forming the lower part of the floor of the 4th ventricle. Okay, and it is covered by the cerebellum. So you can go into the net and see the structure, how the medulla oblongata, the dorsal aspect, and the lower part of pons, it is actually covered with the cerebellum, and the cavity between the cerebellum and the dorsal aspect of the medulla oblongata and the pons is called the 4th ventricle. So 4th ventricle will be dealt later, but just for an idea I'm talking. Okay, so the medulla oblongata is also called the bulb, and it has vital centers, that is, we have already talked about it, that is cardiac and vasomotor centers, and it's very important. It gives attachment to the last 4 cranial nerves, so 9th, 10th, and 11th and 12th cranial nerve. Now come to the external features. So ventral aspect, we have in the center the anterior median fissure, and lateral to the anterior median fissure we have the pyramids, and just lateral to the pyramids, as we go in that order, we have the olive, and lateral to the olive we have the inferior cerebellar peduncle. Now we have to remember one thing, this brainstem are very well connected. All the parts of the brainstem are very well connected with the cerebellum. So medulla oblongata is the lowermost part of the brainstem, so it is connected with the cerebellum, with the inferior cerebellar peduncle. Is it clear? Okay, now let's continue. So now as we go up, okay, so we are only concentrating on the ventral aspect still now. So when we go to the dorsal aspect, we are going to talk about PMS. PMS is nothing but posterior median sulcus. We'll talk about it little later. Now I am going to tell you what are the cranial nerves and where do they emerge. So we have the first, as you see on the ventralmost aspect, we have the anterior median fissure, we have the pyramids on the either side, and lateral to the pyramid we get the anterior median sulcus, anterior lateral sulcus, and in the anterior lateral sulcus, which is between the pyramid and the olive, we have the rootlets of the 12th cranial nerve which are emerging, and then lateral to the olive we have the rootlets of the 9th, 10th and 11th cranial nerves are emerging. You can see that very well over here. I am enlarging it. You have the glossopharyngeal nerve, the vagus nerve, and the rootlet and the spinal accessory, that is the cranial part of the accessory nerve, and the spinal part of the accessory nerve is actually coming from the upper 5 cervical segments of the spinal cord, and it comes up and it joins the cranial part of the accessory nerve. So you can see over here, so 11th cranial nerve is formed, and in the front you are seeing the rootlets between the pyramid and the olive. These are the rootlets of the hypoglossal nerve. Okay, so let's go to the next diagram. So we can see in the center, very important structure, you have the anterior median fissure, and lateral to the anterior median fissure we have the pyramids. Now what are these pyramids? These pyramids are nothing but motor tracts. Okay, so what is the main motor tract? Okay, which will control the voluntary motor activity of the body is the corticospinal tract, and 75% of the corticospinal tract will cross. So you can see some in the lower part of the medulla, you can see some crossings. Okay, and that is called the pyramidal decussation. Great pyramidal decussation. We will take an internal structure also, that is a cross section also, and show you the internal structure. Now 75% will cross, 20% will not cross, and that will descend as anterior corticospinal tract. 75% whatever crosses will descend as lateral corticospinal tract. They are the main motor tracts. So you know about the motor tract because you have already drawn in the spinal cord assignment. These motor tracts are going to carry voluntary motor commands from the motor cortex, that is in the cerebral cortex. So we will come to the cerebrum later part of the neuroanatomy classes. From the motor cortex, they carry the fibers and they go to the different parts of the spinal cord to innervate the muscles and give the commands. Okay, fine. So they are the descending tract. Now come to the more laterally, so we have the olives. So the olives are elevation which is caused because of inferior olivary nucleus, and then you have the rootlets. Already we have talked about the rootlets, and definitely behind the olive, that is more lateral to the olive, we have the inferior cerebellar peduncle. Now we are coming to the dorsal surface of the medulla, which I told you it's covered by the cerebellum, and we have removed the cerebellum and removed the roof of the fourth ventricle, and we can see the orange color diamond shaped structure as you can see in the center. I'm going to enlarge it, try to enlarge it a little bit. Yes, so you can see this diamond shaped structure. So this is definitely forms the entire floor of the fourth ventricle. I'm not going to the upper part of the floor of the fourth ventricle because it is formed by the lower part of the pons. So we are not talking about pons today. So just concentrate in the lower part of this triangle or this diamond shaped area, okay, which forms the upper part of the medulla oblongata. So medulla oblongata is closed in the lower part. So as you go to the lower part of this diagram, you see the lower part of the medulla oblongata, and as you go above, the medulla oblongata is kind of opening up to form the lower part of the floor of the fourth ventricle. Is it clear? Okay, so let's continue. So we are on the lower part of the medulla oblongata. So in the lower part of the medulla oblongata, again in the center or in the median plane, you have the posterior median sulcus. So be very careful with these names. We have called in the ventral surface anterior median fissure, like spinal cord, and then in the posterior part we are saying in the dorsal surface, in the center or in the median plane, we have the posterior median sulcus. As you go laterally, we get a small elevation as we go, so that is called the gracile tubercle. It is nothing but the continuation of the gracile fasciculus gracilis, and as we go more laterally, we have the cuneate tubercle, continuation of the fasciculus cuneatus. So what is this fasciculus gracilis and fasciculus cuneatus? When you have drawn the spinal cord, you have drawn the tract of gall and buttock. Okay, so this is nothing but the posterior column, and they carry sensations. What sensations do they carry? They carry sensations of vibration, kinesthesia, conscious proprioception. Okay, and they are uncrossed fibers. If you have read the spinal cord, these are nothing but ascending tracts, and they carry these kind of sensations from the entire body, and they are uncrossed fibers, and they come and they end in these nuclei which are forming these tubercles. Okay, so then as we go little more laterally, we have the tuber cinereum by the spinal nucleus of the trigeminal nerve. Now you have to remember something here. Trigeminal nerve is the fifth cranial nerve, but it has nucleus throughout the brain stem, though it will come out from the pons, but it will have some component or some nucleus at every level of the brain stem. Okay, so now as we go up, we have the medulla oblongata is opening up and forms the floor of the lower part of the fourth ventricle. Now let's continue in the next slide. Okay, so we are coming to the internal structure. Now we have finished the external structure of pons. We go into the internal structure. Remember that internal structure of the pons will be read at three levels: at the level of pyramidal decussation, at the level of sensory decussation, and at the level of inferior olivary nucleus. Okay, so we will come up slowly. So we will from the lower part of the pons we will be arising up. Now you can see the internal structure at the level of pyramidal decussation. This internal structure looks very similar to what? To the internal structure of spinal cord, because we are just climbing above the spinal cord. Now if you concentrate, you have a gray matter, you have a white matter similar to spinal cord, but the gray matter is getting broken up by a crossing. Can you see the crossing? Yes, so we can see this crossing. This is called the great pyramidal decussation, and the pyramids you see on the ventral aspect, you have the anterior median fissure on the ventral aspect. These are crossing and forming the lateral corticospinal tract. So if you see, these are the lateral corticospinal tract. Now when we concentrate, so definitely this is the pyramidal decussation, so which you have to concentrate very much. Okay, so now let's come to this. So we'll go to the main section. Okay, so let's see this section now again. So I have already explained the pyramidal decussation. You have the gray matter. Gray matter is actually getting interrupted because of this white matter. So white matter which is crossing through the gray matter. So the anterior horn cells are getting detached, okay, from the central part of the gray matter. And if you see the posterior part of the gray matter, you don't see the posterior horn that typically, but yes, still we are able to see. So the posterior horns, again you see the nucleus gracilis in the center and the nucleus cuneatus a little lateral to the nucleus gracilis. So you had the tract of fasciculus gracilis and fasciculus cuneatus, and as we go little lateral we have the spinal tract of the trigeminal nerve and the spinal nucleus of the trigeminal nerve. So the posterior horn gets broken up into three components. So we have the nucleus gracilis and nucleus cuneatus and spinal nucleus. So remember, when we talked about the dorsal surface of the that is the floor, that is just below the floor of the fourth ventricle, dorsal surface of the medulla oblongata, that time we talked about all these things. We talked about, just now we spoke about, that is cuneate tubercle and the gracile tubercle. So in the center we had the gracile tubercle just lateral to the posterior median sulcus, and we had the cuneate tubercle just lateral to it, and we also talked about the tuber cinereum, which is nothing but the spinal nucleus of the trigeminal nerve. So all these are coming in an order. Okay, so now let's move on a little bit. So this is a very important feature at this level. I am keeping on telling you, that is the decussation of the pyramidal tracts or the motor tracts. Okay, so what else can we see in this section? We don't see any more features, but as we go to the higher level, we will be coming across the hypoglossal nucleus and nucleus of accessory nerve more in detail. So it is more or less looks like the spinal cord, and these are the most important features. So now let's go. Yes, obviously the detached anterior horn, which we have to little bit mention, it actually causes what does it contain? It contains the spinal nucleus of accessory nerve and supraspinal nucleus of the first cervical nerve. Okay, so it has spinal nucleus of accessory nerve and supraspinal nucleus of the first cervical nerve. Now let's go to the next level. Okay, very fast we will go to the next level, that is, but the first level is very important, that is the lowermost cross section. Now as we go a little higher, we have the sensory decussation. Now we have already seen the nucleus gracilis and nucleus cuneatus. Now you can see here, as we go a little higher, the spinal cord structure is getting more or less, we are not able to see anymore. It is not like spinal cord anymore. It is getting, the central gray matter is getting more and more detached and dissociated from each other to form separate nuclei. So same way we have on the ventral aspect, we can see the two orange color pyramids. Okay, so the pyramids have not yet crossed because it will cross lower down. Okay, so this is little bit higher section, and we can see the central gray matter okay, in the center, and we have some nucleus over here which are more clearer now. And then as we go more posterior or more dorsal, we have in the center nucleus gracilis, nucleus cuneatus, and you have the spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve with the spinal tract, and you can see the fibers from the nucleus gracilis and nucleus cuneatus are crossing in the midline, and they are forming the medial lemniscus. Now this is very important because here this is the only characteristic feature of this level, that is the sensory decussation. So they cross and they form a tract, which is called the medial lemniscus. And remember, all sensory tracts have to go to the thalamus. So this medial lemniscus will reach to the thalamus for relay. Okay, so what are these tracts contain? What fibers do they are called actually ascending fibers because they carry sensations. What sensations they are carrying? They are carrying vibration, they are carrying sensations of conscious proprioception, position sense, okay, stereognosis, kinesthesia. All these things you will be learning in physiology too. Okay, so now let's go to the other yes, so we have talked about that only, it is there in these slides. So what are these fibers called? These fibers which are crossing, these fibers are also called the internal arcuate fibers. So they cross and they form a tract which is called the medial lemniscus. Okay, and you can easily see the pyramid. You are able to see now just above the pyramid the inferior olivary nucleus, which is looking like a crumpled purse-like appearance. Okay, and definitely it has some sympathetic tracts are also going, so that's why in the center we can see some crisscrossing, okay, of white matter. And then as you see the central part, we are able to see some of the nuclei, so I'll be discussing those nucleus. So here they are only talking about the medial lemniscus and the internal arcuate fibers, and as they cut off and they decussate. Okay, so now you can see that we are going to talk about the central gray matter. In the central gray matter, you can see the hypoglossal nucleus, which is in the median plane. So you have the a small opening in the central gray matter because still the medulla oblongata is closed. Hypoglossal opening is hypoglossal nucleus is there, and just lateral to the hypoglossal nucleus we have the dorsal nucleus of vagus and the nucleus of tractus solitarius. Now remember that medulla oblongata is going to give rise to the last 4 cranial nerves, 9, 10, 11, 12. So definitely they have to give rise, these nucleus give rise to these nerves. Now what is this dorsal? Yes, so hypoglossal nucleus, dorsal nucleus of vagus and nucleus of tractus solitarius. So you are able to see. Now just below the central gray matter, we are able to see a small, just as you concentrate, just below, we have something called the medial longitudinal bundle, just below, just above the medial lemniscus. So what is this medial longitudinal bundle? This is nothing but communication. Okay, so they are communications between the cranial nerves. Which cranial nerves? 3rd, 4th and 6th and 8th cranial nerves, and spinal nucleus of 11th cranial nerves. They just communicate among each other so that the movements are coordinated. Okay, so medial longitudinal bundle, don't confuse it with the medial lemniscus. Okay, so now we have something called the spinocerebellar and spinothalamic tracts. As in the spinal cord, we are seeing that on the lateral aspect you have the spinocerebellar tract, which carries the fibers of unconscious proprioception, which is on the lateral aspect. Okay, so that and we also have the lateral spinothalamic tract, which is carrying the fibers of pain, temperature, okay, touch, all these things. So these are actually now going to collectively form a lemnisci, which is called the lateral and the anterior spinothalamic tracts, which carries pain, temperature, crude touch, and all this kind of sensations. Okay, they will form collectively one white matter bundle, which is called a spinal lemniscus. Okay, so that we will see in the later sections also. Now come to the other next level. So we have gone up. higher. Okay, so here the medulla oblongata has opened up. You are not seeing any central canal. It has opened up and it forms the floor of the fourth ventricle. So what we see over here, as you go from the ventral to dorsal aspect, on the ventral aspect to orange color, big masses you can see, these are called the pyramids. You have the anterior median fissure between the pyramids. As we go up, we are able to see the tracks. You have the medial lemniscus just above the pyramid. We have the medial lemniscus. Then that is the number 3, and then number 2 and number 1 you can see very well. One is the medial longitudinal bundle and one is the tectospinal tracks. So all these tracks are getting formed. So we have already talked about these. And then as we go up in the center, you can see the hypoglossal nucleus has got detached from all the central gray matter and it is separate, and you can see the hypoglossal nerve, which is in red color. It is coming out. Hypoglossal nerve, remember, it comes out just lateral to the pyramid, so between the pyramid and the olive, right? So as we go from the paramedian, as we go more laterally, we can see beautifully the olivary nucleus. The inferior olivary nucleus is like a crumpled purse bag, okay, or it's a crumpled purse like structure. And you have the dorsal accessory olivary nucleus just above that. You have the medial accessory olivary nucleus. Remember that these olivary nucleuses are all part of the extrapyramidal system. They help the pyramidal system, so that's why they are very closely placed with the pyramidal system. So remember that they are all motor system, okay, pyramidal and extrapyramidal system. Okay, so as we go above, as we go more laterally, what do we see? What do we find? What are the nucleus we find? So we find the formation of the vagus nerve. So remember that the medulla oblongata is not only giving rise to hypoglossal nerve, it also gives rise to 9, 10 and 11th cranial nerve. So the nucleus of these nerves has to be present. So you have the nucleus of tractus, nucleus ambiguous. So let's first come more little laterally and talk about this nucleus ambiguous, which is labeled as Na. So this is actually giving rise to the motor fibers of not only of the vagus nerve, it also gives motor fibers of 9, 10 and 11th cranial nerve. So vagus is 10th, definitely it gives rise to the motor fibers of vagus, but also to glossopharyngeal and 11th cranial nerve. So that nucleus is common and it is called the nucleus ambiguous. As we go more laterally, we have the dorsal nucleus of vagus. More laterally we go, we have the nucleus of tractus solitarius. Okay, so these are some of the nucleus on the lateral aspect. And let's go more laterally. You can see an orange color mass on the upper part. It is on the dorsal part actually, not on the ventral aspect. Ventral aspect you have the pyramidal tract. On the dorsal aspect laterally you have again the orange color masses, and these two are the inferior cerebellar peduncle. You remember, I am keeping on telling you that the cerebellum and the medulla oblongata and the pons and also the midbrain are very well connected with each other, and the connection between the cerebellum and the medulla oblongata is the inferior cerebellar peduncle. And just medial to the inferior cerebellar peduncle you have the vestibular nucleus, okay, and the vestibular, below the vestibular nucleus we have the nucleus of the tractus solitarius. And then just below that we have the spinal nucleus of the trigeminal nerve. Again, I have told you that trigeminal nerve is the nerve which is the 5th cranial nerve. Though it arises from pons, it has nucleus all over. It has different nucleus all over the brain stem. Okay, so let's go to the next slide for more clarification. So on either side of the midline, again I'm revising it a little bit. We have the medial longitudinal fasciculus, that is number 3. Once we see in the midline, number 2, please refer the diagram. Number 2 is the tectospinal tract, and number 1 is the medial lemniscus and the number 3 is the medial lemniscus and the pyramidal tract. Number 1 is the medial longitudinal fasciculus, and you have the medial longitudinal bundle, and you have the in the middle. Number 2 is definitely the tectospinal tract. Now you know what is the medial lemniscus. We have already talked about the medial lemniscus. It is the crossed fibers, the internal arcuate fibers which have arisen from the gracile nucleus and the cuneate nucleus, and they have crossed and they have formed this medial lemniscus, and this is going to the thalamus. And what do they carry? They carry conscious proprioception, position, sense, vibration, kinesthesia, graphesthesia, okay, so all those sensations. Okay, now let's see, there is another nucleus which is called the arcuate nucleus. So if you look at the pyramidal tract, which is on the ventral aspect, the two pyramidal tracts, and just look on the lowermost border of the pyramidal tract, there is a thickened black color border which is nothing but the arcuate nucleus, and they receive fibers from the cerebral cortex and sends efferents to the opposite cerebellum through external arcuate fibers. Now we have already talked about the internal arcuate fibers just now in the formation of medial lemniscus. Now this is something we are talking about, the external arcuate fibers. These are actually arising from the arcuate nucleus, which is very close to the pyramidal tract, or it's just covering the pyramidal tract on the ventral aspect, and they send efferents to the cerebellum. Okay, so pyramidal tract, remember, they arise from the cerebral cortex, okay, motor cortex. So these are arcuate nucleus also, so thus it communicates the cerebrum to the cerebellum. Okay, so we'll come to those all details little later. So at this present moment, you go through the section, okay, and try to understand the sections at different level. Okay, now let's go to the next slide. Okay, so we have already talked about the inferior cerebellar peduncle. We have talked about the inferior olivary nucleus, and which is a mass. Okay, now yes, very important point is the blood supply of the medulla oblongata. Now if you see, medulla oblongata is getting blood supply from the posterior circulation. Now see very carefully, please see this. Medulla oblongata is in the lowermost part, okay, of this diagram. So you can see there are two vertebral arteries, okay. So you please concentrate on the lower part of this diagram. So you have the two vertebral arteries which gives rise to the anterior spinal artery, and it also gives rise to the posterior spinal artery, which is not shown over here. And then, but it gives rise to a very important artery which is called the pica, that is the posterior and inferior cerebellar artery, and it joins the two vertebral artery which will join at the upper level of the medulla, okay, or at the pontomedullary junction, okay, to form the basilar artery which will run on the pons. Okay, fine. So basilar artery. So now let's see what are the main arteries which are supplying the medulla oblongata. So you have the two vertebral arteries supplying, the anterior and posterior spinal arteries which are supplying. You have the anterior inferior cerebral artery, inferior cerebellar artery, which is just before it joins and forms the two vertebral arteries, which joins and forms the basilar artery. It gives rise to another branch which is called the anterior inferior cerebellar artery at the pontomedullary junction. Okay, so and also very important artery which supplies the lateral part of the medulla oblongata is the pica. Okay, so you have a pica syndrome also when this artery gets blocked. That's why I'm going on telling about it. So it is the posterior inferior cerebellar artery, and then you have the basilar artery. Okay, so now as we see that is the median part. So this is the section of the pons, upper part of the pons, that forms the lower part of the floor of the fourth ventricle. Again and again we are talking about it. So we are now talking about the thrombosis. What will happen? So if the medial medullary, you have two main kind of syndromes, because the medial part of the pons, or the median part of the pons, is supplied by vertebral arteries directly, branches, and also from anterior spinal, posterior spinal. Whereas the lateral part of the pons, I just now showed you the how the branches are given off from the vertebral artery. So lateral part of the pons is supplied by the pica, that is the posterior inferior cerebellar artery. Now when that gets occluded, there are some syndromes which are caused, and when the medial part of the pons is getting affected, some syndromes there is a separate syndrome which is called the medial medullary syndrome. So you have two main syndromes, that is the lateral medullary and the medial medullary syndromes. So now coming to the lateral medullary syndrome, now this is very interesting. This you can this you can read it up yourself. So you can read it up yourself also. This is the lateral medullary syndrome, which is also called the Wallenberg syndrome or pica syndrome. It comes as a short note. It is very important. What it affects, remember that it is not in the median part, it is affecting the lateral part. So it is written here very nicely, that is the area involved in the pica syndrome is the dorsolateral part of the medulla oblongata. Now remember, what are the nuclei in the dorsolateral part? So thrombosis affects a wedge-shaped area on the dorsolateral part, And remember that over here we have the inferior cerebellar peduncle, which connects the cerebellum with the medulla oblongata. So even the inferior cerebellar peduncle will get affected. So you have cerebellar symptoms, okay, on signs and symptoms. What else will get affected? Spinothalamic tract is there. So spinothalamic tract, remember, carries contralateral pain and temperature. They are already crossed fibers, okay, not like the cuneate and the gracilis fibers. These fibers, the lateral spinothalamic tract is already cross fibers, and they carry pain and temperature in the trunk and the limbs, so that will get lost. That too, remember that it will be contralateral loss. And then what else are also there? We have also talked about all the nuclei of the cranial nerves, okay. Nucleus ambiguous is there on the lateral aspect, so that will get paralyzed. So ipsilateral, but whenever the cranial nerve nuclei are involved, it causes ipsilateral damage, okay, because the cranial nerves are not crossed yet. So the nuclei is only involved. So you have the nucleus ambiguous, which is the motor nucleus of 9, 10 and 11th cranial nerve. So it causes ipsilateral paralysis of muscles of the palate, pharynx and larynx, because if you remember, 9, 10 and 11th cranial nerve innervate the palate, muscles, pharynx and larynx, okay, fine. Definitely inferior cerebellar peduncle will be involved. I have already told that causes ipsilateral ataxia. Descending sympathetic pathway. Now this is a very important thing. I was mentioning about it in the first section, that the medulla oblongata has sympathetic pathways, okay. So they contain descending sympathetic system, like sympathetic crossed fibers, okay. So that will get also affected on the lateral aspect and causes Horner syndrome. Okay, so now next, what else it will, yes, so more or less we have completed this. So remember that, yes, another very important point is that the spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve is also affected, and the spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve carries pain sensation and temperature sensation from the face. Remember, lateral spinothalamic tract will carry pain and temperature from the trunk, the limb, but for the face, it is the spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve, so that is also affected. So you have ipsilateral loss of pain and temperature over the face, contralateral loss of pain and temperature over the trunk and the limb, and also paralysis of the palate, pharynx and larynx. Definitely cerebellar signs will be there. Horner syndrome, because of the sympathetic tract is also disturbed. So all these are the damages which are caused in the lateral medullary syndrome or Wallenberg syndrome. Now let's see about the medial medullary syndrome. So it will be affecting the median part of the medulla. So you have the pyramidal tract which is getting affected. So you have contralateral hemiplegia or paralysis of the opposite half of the body. Remember, the pyramidal tract is getting crossed in the lower part of the medulla oblongata. So it is going to get crossed, so it's just above the crossing, so it is going to affect the opposite side. So contralateral hemiplegia will be there or paralysis will be there, because pyramidal tract is very important because it carries the corticospinal fibers, okay, from the motor cortex to the different levels of the spinal cord to innervate the muscles of the limbs and the trunk. Then in the center, that is in the paramedial position, we have the hypoglossal nucleus. So remember that there will be ipsilateral. I have already told you, whenever a cranial nerve nucleus is involved, it causes ipsilateral damage and not contralateral damage. So please remember that. It causes ipsilateral paralysis of the tongue and atrophy of the half of the tongue. Okay, so one nucleus, one side is involved, atrophy of half of the tongue. Then here we also have in the medial position, in the median plane, you have the medial lemniscus. Now always remember, what is the median lemniscus? Medial lemniscus is nothing but internal arcuate fibers, which are actually the crossed fibers from the nucleus gracilis and nucleus cuneatus, and they are nothing but the continuation of the tract of gall and buttock, and that is the posterior column and or the dorsal column. And what do they carry? They carry position and vibration sense, and so medial lemniscus is involved. So contralateral loss, because they have already crossed, so contralateral loss of the position and vibration sensation. Okay, fine. So this is the medial. So since medulla contains vital centers, definitely whenever you are having injuries to medulla, it will also be very fatal sometimes, okay, because it contains the respiratory center, it contains the cardiac center. Medulla represents a bulb, so it is like a bulb, so the structure is also a little bit resembles a bulb, so we also tell bulbar paralysis. So remember that bulbar paralysis, we are actually talking about medulla oblongata. And what are the nerves which are emerging from the medulla oblongata? We have the 9th, 10th and 11th cranial nerve. Don't forget that because it's very important. So please, it is in summary, remember always that 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th cranial nerves are coming out from the medulla oblongata. Again, for summary reason, I am telling you, you have to know 3 sections. One is at the lowermost part of the medulla at the level of the pyramidal decussation. Just above, that is, you have the level of the sensory decussation where the internal arcuate fibers and the medial lemniscus is formed, and then you have the higher part of the, or the uppermost part of the medulla where it opens up to form the floor of the 4th ventricle, the lower part of the floor of the 4th ventricle, and there you have the most of the cranial nerve nuclei. Okay, you have the dorsal nucleus of vagus, you have the nucleus ambiguus, tractus solitarius, which is actually, tractus solitarius is nucleus of saliva, okay, salivary sensation. Okay, so you have the taste sensation, the taste sensation. So you have all these nuclei at the upper part of the medulla. So remember that these there are 2 syndromes which are caused because of the typical blood supply of the medulla. You have the medial medullary syndrome and you also have the lateral medullary syndrome. And remember always that medulla is supplied by the posterior circulation, that is by the vertebral arteries. Okay, so I think it will be little easier when we explain the slides. So it is just a trial. So we are trying to put up some slides, explained and recorded classes, so that even students who cannot come live, there are students who are unable to come live at the same time, can get the advantage of this recorded classes.